Let's take a look at the Browse command. The Browse command pops up with a menu with 5 tabs: Nets, Symbols, Pins, List, and Options. We're going to focus mostly on the Nets, Symbols, and Pins tab. The Net Browse tab has a button for Filter Nets, which allows us to filter nets based on matching net names. If we type A star, for instance, we will be able to browse all nets that start with the letter A in the design. If we type an underscore P, a star underscore P, we will see all nets in the design that end with an underscore P, which is like a lot of diff pairs. If you know a net name or have a guess of a net name, you can filter the list by using the wildcards. Reset will set the filter string back to matching all excluded nets, and we'll discuss net exclusion in a second. The ... button pulls up a browser where you can use Cadence's sort tool. Arrow controls for navigating allow you to navigate through pages of nets in the table. So if you have a big table of nets here, we can use the double left to go to the top, double right to go to the bottom, and we can see there's 50 nets matching this underscore P. Go back to the top, and then the left and right buttons let us page up and down for those. When you click on a row containing a net, such as row 5 here, the net is highlighted using the selected highlight color, which here is the purple. And we can see this purple net. It's very dense design, so we can see the purple net routing through here. If I move a net, we can see, oh, it just changed to show that purple one. The selections on the bottom control the view of the net when you select it on the row. So zoom will set the zoom level of the PCB to include the whole extent of the net. If you select center, center will keep whatever zoom level you're at and just center the net in the view. So it might not show the whole extent if you're zoomed way in. None will not move the display at all. And it's useful when you're trying to see nets that are in close proximity and you want to see how they move. So if I do none, and then I can select a net, and I can select that one, and that would be the N, and we can see the difference. So I'm not moving at all in the display. If I center it, you can see it move slightly there, right? If I go back to none, it doesn't move the display at all. It just shows us the net. So when you're in close proximity, that's a good thing to use. Display layer, when enabled, will enable the display of all the layers that a selected net is routed on. So if this net is actually routed on, we can see it's on 2 different layers because it's got light blue and then orange and then light blue again. And then the show element button here, when enabled, will enable the display of the show element report. So let me do that and click on one. And the show element, which is typically gotten to by this show element button, report pops up for you, and you can browse through that and see what's there. So you don't always want that on, but sometimes you want to see that element, and I keep that off. The nets can be sorted in ascending or descending order by one of these 7 columns across the top of the table. You have net name, percent Manhattan, the etch in mils, the path length in mils, the Manhattan length in mils, the status, and the comment. The net name sort, so if we want to sort, let's clear our reset, show a bunch of, and then we sort, right click, and we sort descending. The net name does a very good job of sorting names, including bus names in the proper numerical order. Allegro typically does a poor job sorting names and numbers together. Characters and numbers together. But the Browse tool breaks the characters and numbers apart before sorting, and then sorts by name and then by number, so that you can see things in a logical bus order. So you can see here 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So it does a very nice job of walking through a bus, and typically in a higher order number bus, like 32 through 0, is when you'll really notice that with Cadence. The sort by percent Manhattan, this lets the user see routes on the board that might be routed badly. What it does is it divides the actual length of the route by the Manhattan distance, which is the shortest path that the net can take traveling in both the X and then the Y direction. Very short routes could show a large number here. So they can be ignored by setting the exclude lengths to a number like 1,000 and then clicking this. So if I turn this off, if I have it off, there's the number of nets sorted is 2897. If I turn it on, half the nets are gone, and we can see that go away. The other thing is nets in groups, like match groups with relative propagation delay constraints or minimum propagation delays, can also show up as high Manhattan lengths. So if we go to the Options tab, we can exclude those and exclude anything with a prop delay on it and go back. And we can see that number of nets got much, much smaller, down to 558. So when you're looking for problem nets, you might want to include those, exclude your nets, and exclude relative propagation delay and propagation delay nets, because we purposely wanted some of those longer. The etch sort, if we sort here by descending, we can see the longest net on the board, and let's zoom to that. So we can see we didn't zoom. Let's hit the zoom, and we'll click on that one more time, and we can see that net travels across the whole board, and here it is all through, around, up and down, and we can see how it zoomed to the extents of the net to show us everything, and it turned on every layer that was on. The next longest is this Manage Queue Control 0, and you can see we zoom back to the extents, and it's a little bit smaller, but it goes all over the place. This De-Highlight All button is very good. It clears any highlights that we put on those nets, and then we can go back and highlight the big one here and let it do its work and find it. The last feature I want to talk about on this board is the status comment field. So this is a great feature for the browse for an engineer. The engineer can select he can take any net and he can look at it and say, I don't like the way that's routed, so I'm going to pass, warn, or fail. So we'll select fail, and then we'll say this net is too long, please shorten. We can do this for any set of nets in the design, and when we save the design, that will be saved along with it. So what this lets us do is communicate with the designer. So the engineer sees a problem with a net and he tells the designer. The old way to do that was either to sit with the designer and point out the nets by hand, or to try to write up a description of each bad net in an email and tell them, okay, please fix this net and that net. This new feature allows easy, concise, and accurate communication with the engineer and designer, especially in today's business environment when the designer could be located halfway around the world from the engineer. So we can share these comments, and then when the designer opens the board, he can sort based on comment. We would sort descending, and he'll see the first ones listed will be all the nets that are in this board that we've commented on. And that concludes what I'm going to say about the net table.